Hello everybody, and thank you for joining this webinar. Some basic technical information. If you wish to send us questions, you can do so by means of the bottom on the left top Q&A, and only the speakers can use the audio. All recordings and the PowerPoint will be sent via email link, and they will be available on our website. So it's a pleasure today to introduce to you the Sustainable Wine Production and Certification webinar. I am Paolo Bray. I'm the founder and director of Friend of the Sea and Friend of the Earth. And today's special guest is Mr. Marco Muggia, Director of Sales of the company Fossa Mala, an important winery in the region of Friuli in northern Italy. We are the World Sustainability Organization, and we have created over the past 10 years two major certification programs, Friend of the Sea and Friend of the Earth. Friend of the Sea is a certification of products from sustainable fisheries and aquaculture. And Friend of the Earth is a certification of products from sustainable agriculture and farming. So there's currently over 1,000 companies in more than 100 countries which have Friend of the Sea and Friend of the Earth certified products. Fossa Mala is a winery, as I was saying, is a family-owned winery in the Friuli region, north of Venice, in the land of Grave DOC, and in the silt and clay-rich lowlands of the river Meduna. The winery is a 36-hectare estate owned by the Roncadin family, with also an agro-hotel and a restaurant. The Fossa Mala wine has been the first of three wine producers which have obtained the Friend of the Earth certification in the past 2 years. This thanks to Fossa Mala's compliance with Friend of the Earth's requirements, which verify the impact on the natural habitat, conservation of existing flora and fauna, in particular any endangered species, integrated agricultural management, water, energy, and waste management, and social accountability. But let's look more in general at what the few available life cycle analysis of wine production chain tell us about the highest impact phases of wine production. As you can see, there are different phases which use various inputs such as energy, resources, water, land, and generate in the process air emissions, water emissions, waste, and other impacts. Well, surprisingly, the conclusion of basically all life cycle analysis is always that packaging, in particular glass bottles production and cardboard boxes, generate the highest impact on air, water, and soil and land. Also, the vine planting phase, the initial phase of planting the vine, with the higher use of fuel and pesticides, generate a higher impact. So this impact is basically higher on average than transport and the actual winery management. This is the same result shown from a different perspective. And we can clearly see how the impact of pesticides and copper are almost negligible, are almost irrelevant when compared to the impact on air, water, and soil, and the combined impact of the glass bottles, cardboards, and even cork closures. So it is clear that also in consideration of the cost relevance, it would make sense to implement impact reduction measures such as lighter glass bottles or change closures, produce alternative cleaner energy at the winery, and reduce packaging waste. Another quite surprising information we get from various LCAs, life cycle analysis, is that integrated pest management, very similar to the sustainability requirements for good agricultural management practices requested by Friend of the Earth certification, score better in terms of lower environmental impact when compared to organic or conventional. Also, the bigger the farm, the lower emissions and use of resources such as water and land. Of course, these are average conclusions. There are also smaller companies, smaller farms, which can be very much lower impact, as we will see with Fossa Mala, and as well in organic. There could be some companies which go even farther than what are the requirements and thus would perform even better. As far as social accountability, wine must comply with social accountability through all the steps of the production and consumption chain. As we can see from the image on the right, which is taken from requirements of sustainability certification. However, in some countries, there are controversies about mistreatment of workers, namely in some cases in New Zealand, in California, South Africa, and in some places in Europe too. As far as consumption is concerned, there seem to be both beneficial for the intake of antioxidants, for example, in limited amounts of wine consumption during the day, as well as socially detrimental impacts, which are very well known. So there is a plethora of wine certifications out there. However, organic wine has low environmental impact, and it represents only 3.6% of the market in 2018. So it's a very niche market, and biodynamic is even lower. And all the other labels that we see here reproduced, and at the local level there are many others also in Italy, are again local and wine-specific certifications. So what are the difference between these certifications and the Friend of the Earth certification? Well, there are many strong points of the Friend of the Earth certification for products from sustainable agriculture and farming. But the two main ones that I would like to highlight are the fact that it's an international certification and multi-product. So it does not apply only to wine. There are different checklists which are applicable to other agro products. So in the long term, this makes the certification more reliable, more applicable, and also more visible. So there's already among the products certified by Friend of the Earth, products like coffee, quinoa, rice, oil, and wine. So we believe that this is the best approach. We get this conviction from the experience carried out with Friend of the Sea, that the certification has to be international and multi-product to be successful. A local certification can hardly be trusted by foreign markets. So with this, I conclude my introduction. And if the technical setup here allows us, I would like to pass the word to Marco Muggia of Fossa Mala. So thank you, Marco, and please feel free to to tell us about Fossa Mala philosophy and how you apply the sustainability principles to your production. Thank you.
Thank you, Paolo, and thank to all the Friend of the Earth organization, also not only for inviting me, but for the work you already done, what you're already doing every day. Because especially in the agricultural sector, we feel, I mean the people that has, I don't want to say my generation, but I mean a generation of new producers, they feel the need of a better and deeper knowledge about the impact of their work on the environment and on society. And the things that I appreciate more about your presentation, your introduction, because you also mentioned the relationship with workers, with people that works in the agricultural sector. We are focusing on the wine production sector. So as an agricultural producer, so not just a filler that buy outside and fill bottles and sell them. It means produce grape, to transform them, and then to sell them, of course. The first step, we can get to the next one, please. Thanks. The first thing for us is, in my opinion, to have a look about the different approaches on sustainability. So, as you see from the carbon footprint, which is one of the most important, the chemical impact, so it depends on the final product, the environmental impact, so hydrogeological management, which is a tool really close related with agricultural production, the impact on insects and in general on the animals, and the social impact, as mentioned. You can get to the next one. Carbon footprint. We are focusing on three different main energy consumption. So the first one is the ammonium fertilization, because ammonium requires energy, and we say that it comes from the gasoline or carbon coke. So this is for grazing, organization for the plants, for the color, and the prune. That's one of the most. So do not take out the prune residual from the vineyards, but to let them, not only for saving energy and fertilization, but because the quality of the fertilization is better than the percent. And machines that on stripes at the same time also help us to save energy in terms of gasoline. And then that comes the post cooling, which is an important phase for us, because it's really close with the future wine quality. We use this for this goal. So for energy, use solar plant, 360 solar implemented on, so not on the ground, but roof. The next sheet shows the effect. Chemical impact is important because wine production is right now the second variety in Europe for the environmental impact. And so you can see there are different approaches: the conventional, so we can say the traditional, the biological, and then the organic. The main difference are that conventional is not loaded right now. In fact, different compounds are loaded in this mine of production, but right now you cannot produce wine only in the conventional way. The most shared and diffused in Italy is integrated. So it means synthetic molecular are allowed, but they are regulated by cover timing. So the time between the last intervention and the harvest. There are a minimum threshold. It means that you are going to use a lower quantity of synthetic compounds because you will create minimum damage and plant from these and parasites. And then there is the danger of residual, which is in the grapes. So if you look at the tolerance time, you will have a result into the grapes. This means different with, of course, not allow to use synthetic molecules, but allows to use copper and sulfur, but the residual will be only on the grapes. Another difference is that for using copper and sulfur, you will get into the vineyard for treat more or less after every rain. So it means you will use probably a higher quantity of product instead of a synthetic product which has a shelf life around 10 to 14 days. And there comes the organic. Organic, unfortunately, is quite hard as a management because it's not so fast as a cure as copper, sulfur, and the synthetic compounds. Anyway, is the target that has any wine producer, modern and with a sense of respect for the environment, has to think about. The next sheet will show us about, now it's coming, I believe.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I cannot see it. Okay. Is about our approach. As I was telling you, since we are located in one region in Italy with the highest average rainfall, we had to deal with. So for producing a wine that has to be not only consumed by us, of course, but consumed by a consumer that has to pay for a good quality product, not only in terms of environmental impact, but also in the organoleptic quality, we had to share two different approaches. The first one is the integrated pest management, because it's the only one that allows us to keep a minimum standard of quality that will remain the same year by year. The second one is on the new implants. So we are going to have new implants in the biological optical because of 2 years ago, the Udine University released new grape varieties obtained by process selections. So I do not mean GMO organism, but planted selected for being resistant to the main pest that affects the wine production. The next step, the sheets, is on environmental impact. Three main key for us. The philosophy. First of all, the producer must be updated, must study, must be prepared for keeping the production in the right philosophy for the right place. Insect compost. Those are two different sides. but in reality, project management in a scientific way, as the both biological and integrated are, the keeping predators of the insects into the wine will allow you to use a lower quantity of compounds on insects controls. And then comes the agricultural infrastructure, because of course, if you have a grass between the different stripes, if you put the pruning in a mechanical way, if you work by hand, those different choices from the company has different effects on the environment. And the thing that our professional people has to keep in mind is that you have to choose the right one for the right situation. The next sheets, thank you, Paolo, is the social impact. We already said, we as a company, we have a rule in terms of the service we will give to our company. We have a rule as a producer that has people, not machines, but people in the company. And so the people has particular moments, and it's a main reason for us to keep a different behavior with the different people. And that's quite important. And we must, not only small companies as us, but also bigger company, we all have to keep in mind that we are working with people. That's important. The next sheets is response. I have to be honest with you, it has not been so easy to make a synthetic, I don't want to, synthetic sheets about how the market receive our investment and our rule on the environment, because you have a different spreaded approach, so you come from an option to the other one. There is people, our customer, really focusing about how you are feeling about the production. If you are thinking of your impact on the environment, on the other side, there is people that is only interested in quality, a relation between quality and prices. So it's not easy for us. But we are focusing on improving our approach, because we know that in 20 years, maybe 10 years, we all hope 5 years, there will be a better norm. So it's not only about just a certification, but it's a social rule from a company also for educating the consumers, because consumers must be the first one and asks for specific implementation and specific investments in terms of reducing our impact on the environment and improving our impact on the society. I believe I finished, and of course I'm at your service for any question. As a first thing, as a language to my English, and to say thank you once more to Friend of the Earth organization for this webinar.
Well, thank you very much, Marco. I think there was some slight issues with the audio, but I believe with the help also of the writing, the message passed through, and I hope that the audience found the information we provided interesting. I'm launching now a small poll while that you can answer while we look at the questions, if any, and answer them possibly. Okay.
From my side, I can start.
Okay. So
it's really interesting and important. Every sector has specific rules, so important.
Okay, great. So there's a question about ISO 14001 is about environment. Why didn't you consider ISO 26000 on corporate social responsibility? It considers environment, but also social and economic. Yes, thank you, Morgan, for the question. I think it refers to the part of the presentation that I've shown and to the plethora, let's say, of labels out there. Of course, that was only a subset of the total possible labels one can show. We are very well aware of the importance of corporate social responsibility, of social accountability. In fact, from the start, both in Friend of the Sea and Friend of the Earth, we have included requirements on social accountability, which over the years we are improving and strengthening. So yes, definitely ISO 26000 and probably other labels could have been out there to add up. What I think is important to understand is that consumers want things easy and simple. And those who are aware and sensible to environmental impacts of food production and social impacts would opt for a label which covers all those aspects, which provides an easy to understand message, which covers both environmental and social impact. And as I said, which is international and multi-product. That's why we follow this approach as Friend of the Earth. And then there's a question about perhaps merchandising on bottle to tell the story. But yes, sure. I think, well, some companies are already doing this. Let's see if Fossa Mala is. I will turn the question to Marco, and I apologize, Marco, but I cannot, for some technical reason, I cannot show you on the screen, but the people have your picture on the second slide. Marco, is Fossa Mala? What is Fossa Mala doing in terms of communicating, or you have in plan to do in terms of communicating also on the bottle about your certification, or not only Friend of the Earth, but your other engagements and achievements in terms of lowering the impact? I mean, I know that your solar plant has been the first and biggest, I think, in Italy in wine production. Is that mentioned somewhere, or you have in plan to do something more on that?
I mentioned our fiction channels, of course, because we are proud of it. I have to be honest. On the other hand, we have technical problems about what we can do about it. So it's authorized on logo as a Friend of the Earth. But for example, for the biological production, there exists a logo, and is really strictly, as it and it's right like that, in my opinion, is strictly prescribed. I don't know how to translate it. I'm sorry. Is strictly regulated, thanks, is a strictly regulated their use. The back label has not enough, and since we are just left a big bottle for a smaller one for saving a bit of CO2 during transport and the production of the glass in himself, of course, there is not enough space on the back label. On the other hand, I have to say that also the consumer, in my opinion, must be interested in deep in those matters. So it's important that the market goes on the right channel for getting the right information. Of course, a structure like a friend of the earth, for example, that tells our story and to whom we can link partners can help the whole of us to have a better knowledge about the product and his origin.
Okay, thank you very much, Marco. We have a last question about shelf talkers. Yes, definitely more information is needed also for wine and for those companies which are engaging to be more sustainable. So there's no more questions, but you can always write to us. You have all the contact information, of course, already. And I wrap up. I thank everybody for listening and for following this webinar. Let me just remind you that it's actually going to be the 15th of January, 15 of January, there's going to be a new webinar on omega-3 sustainability with a special guest, KD Pharma. So we will send you the invitation and stay in touch. Thank you very much. We will send to you all the complete registration of the webinar video and also the PowerPoint. Thank you, Marco.
Thank you, Paolo, and thank you all of you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.